Welcome back, folks. So, we are almost nearing the end of this series. We learned a lot of basics, but one thing we haven't talked about much is how do we filter out data from our reports? So, the primary goal of this lecture is to show you some advanced filtering techniques. So, we're going to cover some concepts which will help you design some basic reports, but at the same time use some of the features that are available in Tableau, right? So there are many ways in which you can enabling some quick filtering. You can do some cascading filters, so one filter is dependent on another. You can actually control filters using parameters. You can kind of show some customized messages in the graph, some dynamic messages in the graph, and then you can sort of put some reference lines and those stuff. So don't worry about it. We'll look at a few examples that will possibly make these things more clear. All right, so let me go ahead and just open up Tableau. And what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to create a new data source, and we'll just connect to our SQL server, which we have been using so far, right? So I'm going to connect to the same data source, and I'm going to select AdventureWorks. And again, just a rewind for people who might not recollect what is AdventureWorks. It's a sample database that is shipped by Microsoft. So I have just installed that database, in my SQL Server instance. Now, if you are interested, in doing that as well, there is a separate course that I have in which I show you how to install these things. I'll also put a link in the description or in the notes so that you can follow along with me. All right, so let's go ahead and just pull some tables. We'll use the same tables that we used in our previous lecture. So we use the purchase order detail, not this one. So purchase order detail, I believe this one, and I think we use the product detail, right, or just the product. So let's go ahead and use product, and they will inner join, and then I think we use the product header as well. Let's see, where is it? Oh, it's actually purchase header. Yeah, I think we use this one. All right, so we have some data to work with, and we are going to use this, to kind of show you a few things. All right, so we have a blank worksheet right now, right? So let me go ahead and just create a basic report. So what I'll do is I will drop a couple of dimensions, and let's see, let's drop color. Let's drop one more, let's drop name. And what else? Maybe the order quantity, right? So we'll have a few measures. Actually, let me also drop a list price also, so that we have two measures and two dimensions, right? So we, in our previous lectures, we saw how to sort this and stuff like that. So I'm not going to go over that. All right. So now what we are going to do is we are going to drag and drop this class into these filters, right? And it gives me a pop-up as to, what all classes should be selected. Now the thing is that if you see, this is actually during your report design time, meaning users won't get this choice to choose. So you are actually designing this report, and in the report you see that, say that, okay, show me just the data which belongs to class L, and it'll actually filter that down, right? So you're making the report with that filter on. Okay. Again, now if you want people to kind of dynamically interact with the report, and when you deploy the report, if you want people to actually choose, so what you can do is you can just say show filter, and now this becomes available as a part of the report, and then people can choose whatever they want, and this report will dynamically reflect that. So that is one way of actually filtering. Definitely, if you go here in the small downward arrow, there's a couple of options over here in which you can kind of design the overall filter panel as well. So say for instance, I want a drop down, I can use this as a drop down. I can say I want a drop down but multiple values, so I can do this. But every time when I check or uncheck this gets refreshed. Now if this has a lot of values, the report loading becomes a little slow. For that, I generally like to use this one, customize and show apply button. So what it does is you can just select a few things and then click apply, and then it will apply in one shot, right? So some pretty interesting stuff. All right, so let me just choose a couple more. Okay. The next one I wanted to kind of show you is, now this is actually, users can also do it, but you can use this as a shortcut when you're designing your reports. So one of the things is, if you say, click on this particular attribute or dimension, color black, and just keep your mouse there or hover over that, you see a couple of options here. And one of them says keep only and one of them says exclude, right? So if I say keep only, it will actually just keep those rows and it has automatically created a filter with that selection, right? So this is a nice way to also do this. So even when you deploy the report, a user could also do this, or you can just say exclude nulls and it'll just exclude nulls and then give you everything else. So that is kind of very cool. So let me all right, so let's do this. Actually, let me show you how to conditionally filter something. So okay, I have a clear sheet now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you how to add a condition, filter condition, while you're creating the report. So I have just used color over here, and let me drag and drop a measure. I'll use the order quantity and maybe the received quantity. But what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to use this filter color, and it's going to show me all the possible values. Now I'm going to use every value, but I'm going to say that show me just the colors whose order quantity is maybe greater than or equal to whatever, say 10,000, right? So once I do this, you see that that particular condition is applied on the color filter. So that's pretty cool, right? So you can use some conditions as well. The other thing I wanted to kind of show you is using cascading filters, right? So we have color right now, and let me actually even add a class, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to expose the class and color as filters, right? So what we need to do is we need to make sure that whatever values we choose here, and that should basically be passed on to this color filter, meaning only the applicable values that particular class has should be shown here. So let me go ahead and show that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the color filter, I'm going to say show only relevant values, right? So what it will do is basically it will basically depend on the previous filter, and only whatever are relevant and applicable values would be shown in the color, right? So imagine it this way, right? So if you have a geography filter, you have super regions, states, countries, so on and so forth, right? So you can kind of create a waterfall model where you first choose a country, and then only the relevant states within that country will be shown. Then you choose a state, then only the relevant cities within the state would be shown. You choose a city, relevant streets would be shown, and so on and so forth. So it's kind of a cascading effect, and hence we call it as cascading filters. So if you choose H, only the relevant values belonging to H will be shown. So it's a nice user experience because the user doesn't have to know which filter should be chosen. He only gets all relevant filters. All right, so this was pretty cool. I wanted to also show you this new tab over here called Analytics. We haven't really seen much of stuff in that, so let me go ahead and show that. All right, so actually let me clear this and I'll just make something new. So I'll use the order quantity, and let me just use some date, right? So I'll use the cell start date. And by the way, I don't think I showed you this. You can actually use the exact date and basically say I will it as discrete. So it'll actually, give you the entire date. By default, it will roll up to years, but you can kind of modify it that way as well, right? So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to plot this as a graph. So it will give me a graph, something like this. Right, let me just quickly close this so that we have some room to work with. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the Analytics tab, and I'm going to say I need a reference line. All right, so let's go ahead and add a reference line. And you have three options. One is table, pane, and cell. Let's just start with something simple. So I'll click on this reference line, and then say, oops, edit, and I can go ahead and actually change this reference line, right? So I'm going to use this as, say, a constant, and I want the reference line to appear on 500,000, right? So it appears in 500,000, and then I know you can kind of even label it, right? Threshold reference line, something like this, right? So generally this is used to, I personally use it to show targets. So if you're plotting something like sales, and then you can have a line which actually shows you what is the target and how much of the data points are above target and below targets, and you get the idea, right? um, yeah, another cool thing is, we even saw things about the marks over here. There's a plenty of stuff you can do. One of the things we really saw was definitely using the the label. So you can go ahead and just drag and drop the order quantity, and it'll actually show you the labels for it, right? If you also see, there is this, when I hover on this, it actually gives a couple of information. Now this is fully customizable, right? You can actually do two things, right? So you can right click on this, and then you can say annotate, and then I'll say mark, and I can actually write something over here, right? So I will do something like the order quantity, if I can spell it right, for the year is something like this, right? So when I click OK, it'll actually show you this as an annotation. But at the same time, you could also write a tooltip, right? But what we need to do over here is basically we need to customize this tooltip, right? So I'm going to actually write something, this, the order quantity for the year, this is, all right. So this was basically a dynamic text that we are generating. So once I click OK, and if you hover on this, you see that that particular sentence is generated. Now I personally find this really helpful, because when you're actually creating a report that is going to non-tech people and pure business analysts or business dev folks, the more descriptive you can get, and the better story you can say in terms of sentences and stuff, the faster they're going to understand. So I generally use annotations, tooltips to dynamically tell them how to read the data. One of the things that I recently did, which I remember, is actually doing a year over year comparison. So if you hover on a point, it will actually show you this point is for this year, and we are comparing it with year -2, something like that, right? So it's more descriptive, and you can add additional information in it. So you could say that as of today in 2017, the sales are this, but if you compare it with 2015, the sales was Y, and the difference between that is 2017 minus 2005. So you can do all those calculations and actually write a simple story in the tooltip itself, so that it's more descriptive. Before we go again, I think this is quite intuitive. You can actually edit the axis and do a bunch of stuff in it. You can change the title. You can change these, the units, the incremental units that you have. You can keep it uniform, you can keep it independent, or you can keep it fixed, and so on and so forth. That's kind of very intuitive, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but I just wanted to show you that facility exists as well. So hope you got some basic idea regarding charts, annotations, tooltips, how to use reference lines, and how to use some filtering. Now this is something that you will be using in your day-to-day life when you're actually using Tableau. All these things was pretty much a part of every report. So I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching.